Most people live their entire lives thinking effort creates results. But what if the truth was this? Your world is not built by effort. It is built by belief. And belief, my friend, is shaped by three simple words. I discovered these words not from the outside world, but from within. When life had pressed me so far into a corner that the only door left was the one in my mind, I was broke, forgotten, without any visible help. Yet I learned how to speak what was unseen until the seen obeyed. And these three words, once whispered with certainty, changed everything. It is done. Everything already exists. This is the first truth we must grasp if we are ever to understand the mechanism behind creation. Most people live under the illusion of time, believing that their desires are somewhere in the distant future, waiting to unfold. They walk in longing, waiting for the day when what they hope for will finally come to pass. But creation is not linear. It is not unfolding over time. All things, every desire, every possibility, every outcome exists now. In this very moment, there are infinite realities existing side by side, and your awareness selects which one you experience. When you say it is done, you are not creating something from nothing. You are choosing from what already is. You are claiming a version of reality that already exists and entering it through your imagination. This is not fantasy. It is law. The law that governs manifestation does not care whether your senses can verify what you believe. It only cares about the state in which you dwell. If you dwell in the state of wish fulfilled, the outer world must conform to reflect it. This is why it is not enough to merely want something. Wanting affirms lack. When you want, you push the thing away by confirming its absence. But when you accept something as already done, you pull it into experience. There is no begging, no struggling, no forcing. There is only assuming. An assumption, when felt as true, hardens into fact. To understand this, you must learn to look beyond the senses. Your five senses report to you what has already been created. They are instruments of the past. They do not tell you what can be. They tell you what has been. If you rely on them, you are bound by what already is. But if you learn to trust the unseen, to rely on the imaginal act, you begin to live not as a victim of circumstances, but as a conscious creator. The world outside is only a reflection of the world within. So when you shift within, the outer world, by law, must follow. The mind must be disciplined to dwell in the end. It is not natural to the average person to think from the place of desire fulfilled. The world teaches us to react, to respond, to worry, to doubt. But manifestation requires the opposite. You must walk in faith, not in sight. You must speak what you want as if it already is, and persist in that assumption no matter what appearances suggest. This is not denial of fact. It is the elevation of truth. The truth that everything is finished, and you are merely selecting what part of the whole you wish to experience. It is done is a statement of identity, not effort. You do not need to try harder, pray longer, or convince yourself louder. You only need to believe deeply. Belief is not in words, but in feeling. When you say these words with deep inner conviction, you shift your inner state. And once the inner state is changed, the outer must change. You are not asking for a thing to happen. You are declaring that it has happened. You are moving from desire into possession, from seeking into having. The feeling is the key. Words alone are not enough. Anyone can repeat affirmations, but if they are done with doubt, they do nothing. You must generate the emotional atmosphere of fulfillment. How would you feel if the thing you wanted was now yours? That feeling is the doorway. That inner tone is the magnet. It is not about excitement or high energy. It is about peace, satisfaction, quiet joy, the feeling of I have it. And you can summon that feeling at any time through the power of imagination. Imagination is not idle play. It is the engine of reality. Every building you see, every invention, every piece of art, it all began in imagination. Someone saw it within before it was ever built without. The same is true for your desires. See them within. dwell on them with feeling. Saturate your mind with the knowing that they are yours, and as you continue to return to this inner state, it becomes more familiar than the old state of lack. You are rewiring your inner world, and in time, your outer world will reflect the new programming. The process is not forced, it is natural. The subconscious does not resist new states if they are introduced gently and consistently. Repetition with emotion is the bridge. Fall asleep in the feeling of wish fulfilled. Walk through your day carrying the sense of it being done. Let every action you take flow from that place. Do not look to the outer for confirmation, especially in the early stages. Just remain faithful to the unseen. Water it like a seed. Keep your inner conversations aligned with fulfillment and ignore the voice that asks, "But where is it?" There is no need to rush, no need to doubt. Everything is now. You are not building your dream, you are selecting it. And once you accept it as done within, you will begin to see the signs. The world will start to echo your inner belief. It will seem mysterious at first, the way people show up, the unexpected opportunities, the shifts in circumstances. But you will know that you did it, that the unseen responded, that your assumption had power. And from that knowing, you will walk forward, not in anxiety, but in peace. Not in waiting, but in being. Because now, it is done. To remain loyal to the unseen is to declare in the silence of your soul that what your eyes cannot yet see is more real than what they presently behold. The outer world is nothing more than the echo of your past inner state. It is the shadow of thoughts once believed, assumptions once accepted. When you say it is done and then look outside for proof, you break the very law you invoked. You declare with your words, but deny with your attention. To manifest anything into reality, you must become unwavering in your commitment to the invisible. That which you have imagined must become more sacred to you than the facts surrounding you. And you must learn to walk in faith, not blind hope, but faith born of inner knowing, a knowing that all things respond to the assumption held in your imagination. The temptation to measure your progress by outer signs is strong, but the moment you ask, "Where is it?" you step out of the state of having and return to the state of wanting. You shift from possession to absence. You break the continuity of your inner conviction, and the harvest is delayed. The world is not your guide, your imagination is. The outer world has no creative power of its own. It only reflects. It only rearranges itself to mirror your inner world. If you look to the mirror for a new image before you change your expression, you will wait in vain. But if you change your expression first, inwardly, the mirror must catch up. This is the principle upon which everything rests. True loyalty to the unseen is not about ignoring reality. It is about choosing which reality you give power to. There are two realities at every moment, the seen and the unseen. One is visible to the senses, the other only to the imagination. The visible is temporary, shifting, a product of former thoughts. The unseen is eternal, formless, waiting to be clothed by belief. When you consistently give your attention to the unseen, when you nourish the feeling of your desire fulfilled, you are fertilizing the soil of your subconscious, and the subconscious always produces according to the seed that is planted and the feeling that accompanies it. Feeling is the secret force behind loyalty to the unseen. You cannot simply repeat words. You must feel them. If you say it is done, but carry within you the vibration of doubt, anxiety, or despair, then the words are empty. They have no creative weight. But if you speak from a place of inner conviction, where the words are clothed in the feeling of certainty, the world responds, not because the words have power on their own, but because they reflect a state of being, and states are what manifest. You do not attract what you want. You attract who you are, and who you are is defined by the state you consistently occupy, the inner atmosphere you live in, moment by moment. And Loyalty to the unseen is tested not when things are going well, but when nothing appears to change. This is when the senses scream for attention. This is when you must be still. This is when your faith must rise. You must refuse to react. You must walk through the desert of invisibility with the certainty that the oasis is real. Not because you see it, but because you felt it. And feeling is the only true evidence you need. If you can feel it real, you have already created it. It is finished. Now the outer must align not by your command, but by the law that governs all reality. This is why it is vital to guard your inner speech. What you say to yourself in the silence is more powerful than what you declare aloud. If you say with your mouth, "I believe it's done," but your inner conversation is filled with lack, fear, and questioning, the inner voice will win. It is your dominant mental diet that creates your life. The subconscious hears what is repeated most often and accepts it as truth. So choose your words wisely, especially when no one is listening. It is in these private moments that worlds are shaped. You must also avoid seeking signs. Signs follow, they do not lead. If you chase after signs to reassure yourself, you are implying that the inner work is not enough. But if you remain still, confident, and faithful to the unseen reality within you, the signs will come, not as tests, but as confirmations. They will appear effortlessly as echoes of your inner state. You will not need to search for them. They will find you, because the world is always responding to your assumption. To be loyal to the unseen is to live from the end, not toward it. It is to embody the person who already has, already is, already knows. This does not mean pretending. It means shifting identity. You are not faking anything. You are entering the version of yourself that matches the desire. That version already exists. You do not need to create it. You only need to assume it and dwell in it with persistence. The longer you remain faithful to that self, the more naturally the outer world will mirror it back to you. And so you return day after day to the silence within. You close your eyes to the chaos of the senses and open them to the clarity of imagination. You walk by inner light, even when the path outside is dark. You say it is done, and you mean it, not once, but until your bones believe it, until your breath speaks it, until your every thought begins to revolve around that silent, sacred knowing it is already yours. When you say it is done, you are not merely speaking words. You are stepping into a new identity. You are assuming the position of the one who already has, already is, and already knows. Creation is not an act of bringing something into being from nothingness. It is an act of alignment, aligning yourself with the version of you who lives in the fulfillment of the desire. Every desire carries within it a version of self that matches its fulfillment. The key is not to wait for the world to change and then become that person, but to become that person now and let the world conform in response. Identity is the seed of every manifestation. You cannot consistently act like the old self and expect to receive the results of the new one. You must abandon the identity that belongs to the problem and embody the identity that matches the solution. If you are seeking love, you must become the one who is already loved. If you are seeking wealth, you must become the one who already possesses abundance. This is not about external appearance. It is about internal knowing. The version of you that holds the manifestation already exists. It is not created, it is selected. And it is selected by your consciousness. When you assume the feeling of being that person, you shift timelines. You step into a state where the thing you desire is natural, expected, and inevitable. This identity is not something you fake, it is something you feel. You do not trick yourself, you transform yourself. Imagination is the tool by which you inhabit this new self. You must ask, if I were already the person who had this, how would I feel? How would I move? How would I speak to others? What thoughts would occupy my mind? You begin to answer those questions not intellectually but experientially. You begin to act from that state, not toward it, but from it. And the more you do, the more you solidify your residence in that identity. The outer world, by law, must catch up. This process begins in silence. You must enter the inner sanctuary and create there. It is in the stillness of imagination where true transformation begins. The world may still show signs of the old, but your task is not to react. Your task is to persist, to return again and again to the feeling of your new self. The subconscious does not know the difference between what is real and what is vividly imagined. It accepts what is felt with intensity and repetition. So when you saturate it with the feeling of your new identity, it begins to express itself in your actions, your posture, your energy, and eventually in the circumstances around you. You must learn to ignore appearances that contradict your assumption. The old self will try to rise again, and the world may reflect that self back to you at first. But this is not a sign of failure, it is a sign of a transition. The world must shed its old skin before the new can emerge. Your job is not to fight the old, but to feed the new. You do this by affirming your new identity in thought, speech, and feeling. Not forcefully, but faithfully. You say, I am, and you do not doubt. You walk with the dignity of one who already is, not with the anxiety of one who is trying to become. The identity shift is the foundation. Every manifestation is downstream of that shift. If you do not believe you are the one who has, the desire remains outside of you. But the moment you become the version of you who naturally lives in that reality, the desire collapses into form. It must, because reality responds to identity, not to effort, not to time, but to self-concept. And your self-concept is shaped by what you consistently think, feel, and assume about yourself. You cannot simply wish for change. You must embody change. You must release the stories that belong to the old self, stories of why it won't happen, stories of lack, rejection, failure. These are scripts that have kept you tied to the former version of yourself. The new self writes a new script, one that is filled with certainty, wholeness, and ease. One that does not question, but claims. And once this script becomes your dominant narrative, the world around you will begin to mirror it back in ways you could not have predicted. Okay, I said predicted. You're not becoming something new. You are remembering who you already are beneath the conditioning of fear, doubt, and time. Your highest self, the version of you that lives in alignment with the dream, is always present, waiting for your recognition. When you say it is done, you are not hoping. You are declaring. You are speaking from the authority of that self. And when that becomes your dwelling place, everything around you reorganizes, doors open, people shift, events unfold, not by coincidence, but by law, because your world is always a reflection of the self you bring to it. Change the self, and the world changes with it. The words, "it is done," carry no power unless they are spoken from persistence. To persist in the assumption of your wish fulfilled is to stand unmoved even when everything outside of you suggests nothing has changed. This persistence is not loud, nor is it desperate. It is quiet and unwavering. It does not need to convince anyone, nor does it require validation. It is a knowing, and that knowing becomes your dwelling place. When you persist inwardly in the reality you desire, you train the subconscious to accept it as fact. And what the subconscious accepts, the world reflects. The process is not about repeating a phrase over and over with urgency. It is about returning again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled until that feeling becomes your natural state. If you imagine once and then go back to your old habits of thinking, the seed planted has no time to root. But if you persist in the inner scene, if you return to it when you wake and just before sleep, if you carry its feeling through the hours of your day, then you water that seed with your attention. And attention is the food of manifestation. What you attend to grows, what you neglect fades. Most people make the mistake of observing their world and allowing it to dictate how they feel. They check their circumstances like one checks the weather, and their mood changes based on appearances. But manifestation requires the opposite. You must become the cause. You must hold the inner feeling regardless of the weather outside. Even if the bank account shows lack, you must feel abundance. Even if the body feels weak, you must feel wholeness. Even if the relationship appears distant, you must feel connection. These are not acts of delusion, but of creation. For your inner state is the blueprint from which the outer is formed. To persist means to stop negotiating with reality. You no longer ask if it's working. You no longer scan for signs. You rest in the assumption. You dwell there like one who knows the harvest is coming. You no longer need proof because you have already accepted the truth within. This is not passive. It is the most active stance you can take. To assume something is done in the face of contradiction requires strength of mind and purity of focus. But this is the narrow gate through which all miracles pass. The subconscious does not respond to occasional desire. It responds to sustained belief. And belief is shaped by repetition, emotion, and consistency. You must make it your habit to feel from the end, to speak from the end, to walk from the end. When you do this, the line between imagination and reality dissolves. The world begins to bend. People begin to say things that match your assumptions. Opportunities arise in alignment with what you have inwardly declared, not because you forced it, but because you persisted in the unseen. There will be moments when doubt whispers, when the delay tempts you to return to old thinking, when the world presents evidence contrary to your desire. This is the test. This is the moment you choose, not with force, but with quiet confidence, to return to the feeling, to affirm within yourself, no, this is who I am. This is what I have. This is what is done. That mental return is everything. Each time you turn your attention back to your assumption, you deepen the impression. Each time you rest in the end, you anchor the vision more deeply into your subconscious. And over time, the outer must yield. Persistence is not a frantic doing. It is a calm being. It is a willingness to feel the reality before it is visible, to celebrate before it is received, to bless before it arrives. When you persist, you are not waiting, you are living from the end, and in doing so you collapse time. What might have taken months or years begins to move swiftly because your assumption is no longer conditional. It has become your identity. This is why persistence must be rooted in feeling. You cannot merely say, I will get it. You must feel as though you already have it. You must carry yourself as one who has arrived. This feeling, this state of consciousness impresses itself upon the subconscious mind, which is the builder of your reality. Once impressed, it seeks out in the outer world that which matches its inner picture. The people, places, and events begin to rearrange in obedience to the persistent assumption you've held. Your task is simple, but not always easy. Persist without effort. Return to the feeling again and again, not with struggle, but with joy, with ease, with a soft inner knowing. Let the old voices rise and fall. Let the world play out its fading scene. Do not be moved. You already know what is true. You already know who you are. You already know what you have. And so you persist in silence, in certainty, and when you persist in the assumption that it is done, it becomes impossible for it not to be done. Because reality is shaped by the persistence of inner vision, not by the outer noise, but by the inner silence that knows the truth and refuses to let go of it. That is the power of sustained imagination. That is the law by which dreams are made visible. When you understand that reality is shaped not by effort but by assumption, you awaken to a power within that has been with you all along. These three words, it is done, are not a wish, not a plea, but a command spoken from the throne of consciousness. They summon the unseen, they bypass time, they carry you into alignment with the end result. And yet these words mean nothing if they are not backed by identity, by loyalty to the unseen, by unwavering persistence in the inner world. You are not here to chase your desires. You are here to embody them, to become the one who no longer asks, how will this happen, but who silently declares, it already has. Your inner world is the first cause. And when you speak from the end, dwell in the end, feel from the end, your outer world must echo it. No matter what the world tries to show you, remember, the truth is not in the facts, but in your faith, your assumption, deeply felt and consistently honored, is what constructs the bridge to your desire. So speak the words not just with your lips, but with your life. Let them color your imagination, your decisions, your posture, your emotions. Say them when it's dark. Say them when it's bright. Say them until you no longer need to say them. Because your entire being is saturated with their meaning. It is done. It is done. It is done. And the moment you truly believe that, the world has no choice but to show you it's true.